All right, today we're going to review the iFlight 120 RS toothpick quadcopter. Okay, so before we get into the details on this, if you don't have a toothpick style quadcopter, you need to get one. They are awesome. This thing just about flies like a 5-inch, but I find myself risking it more because it doesn't really matter if it runs into anything. It doesn't hurt the quad, it doesn't hurt whatever it runs into. It usually shakes out, falls down, and then you can turtle mode it if you're not in too high a grass, and then keep going. It's really nice for practicing. I would say that if you're looking to get some more practice time in a 5-inch, you need a bigger field or it's kind of a little loud. This toothpick, you can go right outside the office or wherever and then start flying these things. They're so quiet. And again, it's not so heavy so that when they crash, it's not such a big deal. For the iFlight, this thing is pretty strong. It has a 3mm bottom plate that's all the way through. Now, it is breakable. You can see I did break one here. Landed on concrete from about 40 feet high, and it looks like it landed right on this edge. Now, they do have some different frames out there, but I still like this frame. They have a new one now where there's kind of a cross brace down in here, but the carbon's not as thick. It's 2mm thick versus this 3mm thick carbon. When ordering this, I did have some troubles on the V1 version of it. This is the V1, not the latest. The latest edition of this, the V2 version of this, it has kind of the plastic canopy. It's essentially the same thing with more updated flight controller components. It has back box flash on it, and it has this plastic canopy over the top. But the base frame down here, this bottom plate's the same thing. There's a 2S and 4S version of the V2 on this. This was a 2S version, but it was listed as going up to 3S as well. It had 10,000 kV motors on it, and I put 3S on it, and I burnt those motors out. It took me a little bit until I figured it out. It was the kV problem. I wasn't used to the micro motors and things like that. Anyways, I got some DYS motors on here. I am running 3S on this rig now, and there's 7,500 kV motors on here. It runs like a dream. The second big piece of advice for these is it's all about the props. Now, the new V2 version, you should be in good shape. It comes with some bi-blade props. Yeah, it looks like they're the 65mm HQ. That's what these are. These are the HQ T65, which really run like a dream. So those props on the original, the Gem Fan, they were no good. It was oscillation in Jello City. I thought that's why I was burning out motors too. Then trying to filter it out and things of that nature. Really, it was a prop problem. Those Gem Fans, if you have those, you should just toss them in the trash. Those are no good. They're too heavy for these, and they're just too many oscillations. As you can see on here, what I tried to wire up is the open lagger. There's only 2 UARTs on these boards, and it's really a non-issue anymore because I just noticed before I started recording this video that the V2 or the V1.5 and V2.1 version of the flight control board that they come with now has 8 meg of onboard flash for black box logging, which honestly, I think I'm going to pick up that board. Their wiring diagram for switching out some of the pins, I'll show here in a second, but it's not right and it doesn't work. So you can't, if you do have an older one, you can't hook up an open logger device. You can try to do it through soft serial, but soft serial is just not fast enough to catch any meaningful logging rate. Even down at 500 hertz logging rate, it still was jittery, and it was a useless log. So that was an epic fail, but again, the new flight control board, if you do pick this up new or do have the old one and want to get flash, just get the new flight control board. I think the one is $17 and the other one's 20 bucks. So it's not too bad. And you can throw that in and get logging through that. So I wanted to show you the motors I do have on this that work really well for 3S. Those are the DYS on these HQ T65 props. It's smooth. It still has plenty of pep, plenty of punch. I find myself very rarely at 100% throttle just because there's so much power there, and motor heat's not an issue. The other thing I do have on this that I would definitely recommend is JESC on that, and the RPM filter Looking at the current offering, it looks like there's a 2S and 4S version. Whether you would get 2S or 4S, I really don't know. I really wish they had a 3S version. The components are going to take up to 4S regardless. It's really just what kV motors you have. So you can see with the 4S version, you got the 1104 4000 kV and the 2S 1103 10,000 kV. I have the 1104 7,000 kV motors on mine with 3S, and it seems to work pretty well. For the milliamp hours, I'm supporting the 525 milliamp hour 3S LiPo race day quads. You can also see there's a 650. I would think the 650 is fine as well if you want a little bit longer flight time. I'm getting about 3 to 4 minutes, 3.5, depends how much full throttle I'm hitting. So not doing too bad on the 525, still plenty of pep. 650 would give you a little bit longer times, and then the 300 obviously would give you a little bit more pep but less flight time. So again, I feel the 525 is a good middle ground. Now, in looking at the different versions of the flight control board itself, I can see for sale yet is still the 1.5 version, and there's also a 2.1 version. The differences between the two are pretty subtle, but I did want to point out that the notes here on either the 1.5 or the 2, if I go to here, and it talks about how to redirect. So when you're looking at VTX control, it shows that there's really only two UARTs on this flight control board, and that TX1 for UART1 is going through the pin header, which goes directly into the VTX, and that's using IRC tramp protocol for the telemetry and to adjust your VTX, which is pretty critical on this. The VTX gets really hot at 200 watts, so you definitely want to have pit mode on, that when you right before you arm it, you flip out of pit mode and arm it up, and then or if you crash, you can flip it into pit mode. I have pit mode off by default, and then if I crash or whatever, I'll flip it into pit mode as I'm walking over so that VTX doesn't get so hot. You really have to be paying attention to it because this VTX is so small, it really seems to get hot. So they have down here like, hey, if you'd want to hook up some sort of other VTX, which is pretty rare, and I'm sure, I don't know who would be doing this, but it does lead you to believe that, oh, you can repath UART1 to be your LED strip here. There's a couple issues. First, it just doesn't work. And second, the pin is not A09, it'd be A08. So if you look at, without getting into too much detail, if you look at the pin layout or whatnot, A09 is this pin right here. So mapping the LED function, that's like the opposite of what you want. You'd be mapping the LED function over to this pin for like LED lights to come out of this pin. The LED pad here is really A08. So what you really are wanting to do is map UART TX1 to A08. So it would really, this would say none, and then you'd put A08 up here. However, even if you do that, it's not going to work. You can't just arbitrarily remap UARTs like that. If anybody from iFlight is seeing this and I'm missing something, I would love to know, but I can't get it to work. You can, again, get soft serial to work by mapping a soft serial port to A08 and then hooking up whatever you want to hook up. But again, soft serial is pretty slow. It's not fast enough for an open logger or open lagger. Again, none of this is really an issue if you're buying it new or if you just want the black box capability, because you can just pick up for $17 or $18 here the updated flight controller. The one I have is I think just V1. So you can see on here it has 8 mega flash, which is plenty to get a log out of it and look at your noise and tune and things like that. It does look like iFlight is leaning towards the 4S version. If you go onto their website, that's the only thing they have available there. But other vendors like Race Day Quads, you can either get the 2S or 4S version. Banggood does still have the original version of this. This is what I have here, and it works great. I wouldn't pay $135 for this when you can get the V2 version for $119, but it is available there now. Again, the bottom plate is the same. So what's nice about some United States vendors even is that they have the quad and these the frames and some hardware parts here that you can get within the United States, so you're not waiting for the shipping and whatnot. So, you know, I picked up a couple of these frames, the bottom plate frame, and again, that's if you have the V1 version or now the V2 version of the 120 RS. So that is the iFlight 120 RS. I would definitely recommend it. This or some sort of toothpick type quad to have in your arsenal. They're really a lot of fun. I would even kind of say, you could even say that they're more fun than a 5-inch quad. Again, the similarity to a 5-inch of performance is not exactly the same, but I would recommend getting one of these and trying to get in some stick time versus using a simulator. Obviously, if you're brand new to the hobby, you know, you need some sim time to learn to fly, but just when you're kind of just getting stick time to improve your skills and practicing inverted yaw spins, things of that nature, this is definitely the way to go. Toothpick style quad. And definitely the iFlight 120 RS is a good flyer based on my experience with it. Thanks everybody, and I hope this helped.